Well, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. And today, guess what? We're going to continue talking about MELANI BOUDREAUX Pawlowski. So, MELANI BOUDREAUX was married to Brandon Boudreaux. They had these four beautiful children together. They seemed like the perfect couple until one day they weren't. So, who made these big changes for MELANI? Well, it was her own aunt, Lori Vallow. Lori Vallow, who was believed that the second coming was near, that she was a prophetess, and that she had gotten messages from heaven that she would be one of the people to lead in and usher in that second coming. Also, she would be the leader of a church called the Firstborn. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty. So, this group was actually ranking people either light or dark. And if you were dark, you could also become a zombie if you were dark enough. And that meant you were about to die. How many people died in this circle? Well, we have Charles Vallow, supposedly shot in self-defense, but later considered to be a murder. Brandon Boudreaux was shot at, but they missed. Tammy Daybell was smothered. JJ and Tylee, her own children, were murdered and buried in Chad Daybell's backyard, which was Lori Vallow's lover at the time. Then you had the red flag deaths. Joe Ryan, which was Lori Vallow's third husband, and then Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother. They say he died of natural causes. It is believed that this group had not been stopped when it was. There might have been more murders, including MELANI BOUDREAUX's own children. Why? Because they were considered to be dark. So MELANI did something that really stood out to everyone, and she had divorced her husband, Brandon Boudreaux. I guess you would have to say it's at the end of summer or something. It went official there. And she met this guy named Ian Pawlowski in mid-November 2019. Within 2 weeks, those two were married. And the day that they decided to get married is when everything started to crash down around them. So very strange choice of Ian Pawlowski. At the beginning, I think many people thought that Ian just was either oblivious to what was going on or naive to their lies. But no, he wasn't that dumb, would you think? We didn't see MELANI BOUDREAUX testify much. And if she did, she didn't give much information. And if there were a deal, I would have to say if I was her attorney, she didn't follow through. Ian Pawlowski, on the other hand, attempted to testify for the prosecutors, but he wasn't 100% honest. Now, something that stood out to most of us is during those trials for Tylee Ryan, JJ, and Tammy, you didn't see MELANI BOUDREAUX testify. You did not see MELANI BOUDREAUX testify during Brandon Boudreaux's trial either. And she didn't testify at Charles Vallow's trial. You got to remember, she's one of the biggest witnesses, should be, for the prosecutor, but she wasn't testifying. Now, Ian did testify a little bit more, and you can think, what's the reasons for this? Well, it seems that Ian could be a little bit more reliable for the prosecutors than MELANI is. He might talk a little bit more and be consistent. But then there's another idea. When the prosecutor said, we are still investigating MELANI BOUDREAUX Pawlowski still today, her case remains open, maybe that can be one of the reasons you didn't see her testify. Now, you got to remember that this group of people were doing castings for these people they deemed with dark spirits. And they knew good and well that if they were possessed by a dark spirit to the point they could label it a zombie, that this spirit would have to die, which means the body would die. Who in their right mind would continue to be in this group when you start noticing that when they did castings or shortly after, people were dying off? And if you didn't know about their death, they just disappeared. You got to remember, Ian Pawlowski is just walking into this group when the police are really knocking hard on the door of Lori Vallow in Rexburg, Idaho, and they're asking, where are the children? And they have concerns about the children's well-being and where they're at. Also, got to remember that Brandon Boudreaux has contacted Ian's family and informed them that people are dying. They have concerns. They're looking for children. And Ian Pawlowski not only stays with Melanie, but marries her. Now, there's many, many parts about this possession they know about that they weren't sharing much, that Ian did share. And I'm going to share some of that with you right now. And one of that being bugs that can crawl into your ear. Now, my series, Life Beyond the Grave, I have researched this and I have a lot of information to share with you on this of why I think they did these things, but we're not going to do it here. I'm just going to give you a sneak peek of what we will talk about. And this is Ian Pawlowski testifying about people becoming dark.
You talked about hearing the term casting or casting out, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. What did you hear about and who did you hear it from?
So there were references to it during phone calls that I heard. Basically, my understanding is that with casting, you're trying to expel a possession, demonic, disembodied spirit, or they were getting into this bug kind of possession that they were talking about where someone would crawl into your ear or your brain that would take you over. And so there were references to that during the phone call. Casting, you would pray to force that possession, the possessor, out of the body.
Okay.
So Ian's being questioned by the defense attorney, Archibald. And he asked Ian, you have recordings that talk about this? And he said, yes. Now, we haven't heard those recordings, but I guess they exist. So now he's kind of hinted at it's more of a parasitic possession than pushing a spirit out. What was interesting too during this testimony, Archibald asked him, are you working with the FBI at any capacity at all at this point? And Ian proudly says, not at all.
When did you stop working for the FBI?
It was approximately 2 weeks after I started.
So you only did this for 2 weeks? All right. Who knew that you were recording these conversations?
So myself and the FBI.
Okay. And this was after you were married?
Yes.
And your wife didn't know you were recording?
She did not.
Does she know now?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, it sounds like to me, and you share your comments below, that Ian has decided that all of this mess, this craziness didn't matter. He was going to support his wife and do whatever he needed to do to keep her out of trouble. So once he quit working with the FBI, he just started talking with her attorney, and it all come to an end as far as his helping the investigators and trying to find out what happened to those children. Now, in my previous videos, we go over your comments, and I kind of go over them at the end. We're going to kind of mix them in and out here. Now, a lot of people have an interest in Nate Eaton and his coverage on this story, and they wonder if his connections to the Mormon Church are somehow affecting the trials or decisions. Now, we know that Nate Eaton is the agent listed in the LLC for East Idaho News. Depending on the source you look at, it says that Nate Eaton could even be an owner of East Idaho News. But we do know that he is a director there, and he has tried very hard to not hide much. But because he is LDS and he is part of the Mormon Church, people suspect there's a chance that he may be hiding something or helping the church in some way. Some people believe that the East Idaho News is affiliated with the church in some way as well. So I just wanted to share that comment because people are talking about that. They have interest in that. It doesn't, it's not picking on Nate at all, guys. In fact, Nate deals with his own questions where they question him, and he more than openly shares his view on whatever that is. So here's two comments. One is referring to Tylee. So Grandma says, how much junk food did Hori feed to Tylee to keep her sick with flare-ups of pancreatitis? I have to say, even I have suspected Lori and her mothering skills with Tylee, whether or not she had Munchausen by proxy, because there was definitely a few red flags there that would make you want to at least investigate that. However, this is a great question. I mean, if you know that she's dealing with pancreatitis, then why is she eating out so much? We do know that Lori wasn't the greatest at feeding the kids. Now, Grandma had a response to that said, yes, she seems like she had a hand in her illnesses, and we only have her word for the diagnosis, and we know what her word is worth. I can't top that. I mean, that just puts it plain and simple. Lori's words are useless. There are several people that absolutely agree with you guys on that. I've seen comments over the years where people were concerned about Tylee's health. So thank you for sharing. Stephanie shares a comment that I can totally agree with. Some of you might not, but that's okay. She says, I totally get how someone can be sucked into a cult. Loneliness can be a destroyer. However, once the cult gave the green light to murder the children, how do you keep going along with that? Who doesn't stand up and say they want nothing to do with this? Who doesn't sing to the cops to prevent them from taking the lives of children? That's the part I'll never understand. There's still people today, Stephanie, trying to figure out how these people could go along with this for so long. It happened to Charles. And then after it happened to Charles, you would think, okay, the lights are switching on, something's not right here. And then when she starts sharing the fact openly that she tried to poison Charles, it was definite that they knew that Lori is trying to do something more than just cast out a demon. Once the kids become involved, what I learned is that many of them would talk badly about Lori's kids. And guys, I don't know if most of you know, maybe some people are scared to share it, but the truth is, Lori's children were difficult to get along with. It was hard to get to know them. Even family members wrote some things that said, you know what, Tylee was a very difficult child. And it goes a little bit more deeper than the way I say it, but just so that you know. To put it simply, there was quite a bit of attitudes. And Melanie Gibb knew that because at the beginning, when she first started chirping, she mentioned how Tylee was and even mentioned the fact she may not even like Tylee very much. Melanie knew good and clear that Tylee didn't like her. But even so, what would possess Melanie to not give a crap about what these kids were going through? Here they are preaching the word of Jesus after all. That word teaches to love, forgive, and to help others, not to murder them. That is a great point because it seemed like a lot of these people that did start hooking up at some point in their life, it's almost like a midlife crisis or that they were all searching for something at the same time, maybe a bit of loneliness, but something brought them together. Thank you so much for commenting. Next is Mary. Great job, Debbie. Thank you for all. And you're very welcome, Mary, by the way. And Mary is talking about the fact how when people question or talk to Lori or Melanie, both, either one, if you ask them a question, they'll go around that question and do whatever they can to not answer that question, causing confusion. Mary says that's how evil works. Melanie talks exactly like Lori, twins. She sounds dangerous. I couldn't agree more, and I think most of us probably agree with that when we watch Melanie in interviews and how she manipulates people, playing innocent and loving, knowing, what's happening behind the scenes, I think the gig's up by now, thank God, right? Thank you, Mary, for sharing. Okay, comment from Artie. I haven't seen you in forever, Artie. It's nice to see you, by the way. Artie says, Melanie says there's a lot of lies out there. The only person that is spreading lies is Melanie. Melanie needs to be arrested and thrown in jail, then prison with Lori. Absolutely. I mean, so many comments. There was a lot of comments. I'm having trouble getting them all out here. I'm not used to this many, but we're gonna try. A lot of them say that Melanie should be behind bars, and some people believe that Trina K is going to pull through and make that happen, while others say no, it's not going to happen. Thank you for your comment. And next we have Angela. After he was shot, she's meaning Brandon, she moved away, showing her guilt. She moved away from her kids despite joint custody. That's right, Angela. So Brandon Boudreaux was shot at, and his wife, who was suspected to be part of that, moves away to Idaho and then complains she can't see her children, which is what, about several hours away. Next, we have Sassy. Melanie needs to be arrested and charged with conspiracy to unalive her husband, now ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. That's correct, Sassy. There are a lot of comments, I'm telling you, on our videos right now that say exactly that. So you have a lot of people in support of what you believe. Now, I want to remind you guys that my audio is the worst thing I've got, and I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying different mics, but I'm working on getting a computer right now, so just bear with me. It takes me forever to decide on what to get, especially when you're going to spend that much money. So next we have Gina. She says it's sick that Lori Daybell saying to Nate, no one is a victim. She didn't do anything wrong. So we'll pause there and then we'll read the rest. Absolutely. So you have a woman. This shows you how good she is at gaslighting, and that she's done it so long that she's very comfortable with it, to look you in the face and tell you what she wants you to believe, even if it isn't true. The lack of remorse is insane, isn't it? Then she's finished. Let's go ahead and finish this. LDS presidency said in the conference, anyone who hurts children and people will meet the wrath of God. So if you're not Mormon and you're following this case, a lot of people look towards Mormonism as one of the main reasons this might be going on, but that's not the case. Like any religion, they're going to have people that that go outside of the main teachings. I mean, we've had it happen in Christianity, Islam, everything. And so people don't understand Mormonism, believe that some of them believe that possibly the leadership is what brought them here, which I have to say that I do believe that maybe the only thing I can think of that might have changed is the fact that the presidency is actually supporting more open revelation instead of keeping it to yourself. And that might be where you see this big bunch of people coming out and sharing so openly their revelations. So that's the only thing I can think of. This is a very touchy topic because I know that Mormons have been in persecution, which has caused them to feel like they have to hide from everyone. But also, I do believe in freedom of religion. And I just don't know that much about Mormonism that I can speak as a scholar. I just can't do it. Although I have been studying it really deeply for 5 years, along with other religions, which is, I'm telling you to turn into life beyond the grave. Even you Mormons might find this interesting, what I found. Thank you guys for sharing. I'm not trying to hurt anybody or insult anyone. We're just sharing our thoughts openly, guys. And we should be able to do that without getting angry. I'm just that type of person. I always tell my kids, they'll kind of say, Mom, you're a little too open about how you feel about things. And I'm like, well, I think you're a little too closed. So, just it's a difference of opinion, I guess. I've always just been a very honest person. And so I would share even my worst. If you ask me, now I'm not going to share my personal stuff openly, But if we get on a face-to-face and we're talking and you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it very honestly. So next is Barb Murray. She asked, how many times has he talked to her? So I think she's referring to Nate when he did that interview with Lori Vallow, and we find out that he's been talking to her behind bars, which I kind of suspected, but I figured he would have let it out a little bit earlier, and he didn't, so it threw me off a little. But I was shocked to find out that they were speaking kindly on friendly terms. But also, what I've learned is a lot of reporters, in order to establish these resources and information, they have to learn to be very likable to the people they want to interview. They can maybe go home and say, I can't believe that she did this. I can't believe that she said that. But when they're facing them, they're like best buddies. So when Nate was kind of laughing and joking in this interview, it made a lot of people upset. So Nate, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, maybe you ought to kind of tell people what it's like to be a reporter and deal with these, evil people. You can't come out and say, hey, you're evil. In fact, I don't like you. Not a little bit. Now, will you do an interview and tell me what you know? Thank you, Barb, for sharing. Yeah, I think a lot of us were kind of at first very upset, and it's probably because of the moment. It was just a hard moment. Next is Rhonda. I believe she was chasing down Brandon to flush him out so that Alex could shoot him and claim self-defense again, since it worked with Charles. Every time she went to his mom's house, she had Alex with her. It's crazy, right? We know now that Alex Cox most likely was the shooter. We know now that Lori Vallow's been convicted for conspiring to shoot Brandon. And we know that once that shooting failed, that Melanie was very persistent, going to try to get a hold of Brandon, claiming that she wants custody of her children, that they're her children. It just seemed like a ruse of some sort, some kind of trap. And luckily, Brandon didn't fall for it. I agree. I mean, I really think that was it. I think a lot of people do, that there was something more going on when instead of her just wanting to see the children. And of course, that's our opinion and that's our thoughts. So Incredible Life Story says, I have no doubt that Melanie is guilty. She should pay for all her involvement in the conspiracy to murder Brandon Boudreaux. Thank you for commenting, and a lot of people agree with this. We're going to move a little bit more quickly, guys. Colleen says, that's okay. Ian can go down with her, right? Linda says, all journalists have contacts. That's how they get their stories. Absolutely true, Linda. Thank you for sharing. Karen Baldry writes, Melanie, your ex took your children away from you to save them from being buried in the pet cemetery. You were about to do to them what Lori did to Tylee and JJ. I can't believe you're actually allowed to have any contact with them. I often wonder if you now look back on what you were involved in, up to your neck, and you know it. Do you shudder inside when you look at your precious children playing and laughing, knowing what their fate would have been if Lori had not been caught when she was? Thank you so much for that comment, and I can feel that intense fear in your voice and concern that we all have for the fact that she does have custody and visitation with the children. Because knowing what we know today, knowing how hard it was in order to get police to do something in this case, it's just hard. It's just hard to imagine how she is capable or allowed to have these children in her lives so shortly after this. Like I said before, it's like watching Lori all over again when Lori and Joe Ryan was going through whatever they were going through with Tylee Ryan. You would think that they would learn from their mistakes, but that doesn't seem to be the case. What's going on with their ability to protect children in that area? G. Hirsch writes, nobody was a dark spirit. It was just those two idiots and a list. Yikes. That's right. That's just, whoever went against them automatically was deemed a dark or zombie spirit. Basically, they were putting a target on their back. Johnson says Melanie is not the victim. She is involved with Lori and Chad and Alex. This next comment puts it into perspective for you here. So Christine says, geez, 6 of the 9 people on that diagram are dead. Margie said, I'd be terrified to share custody with her, meaning Melanie Boudreaux. What if she decides they are dark and awesome? That's scary. I mean, when you go back and think about Lori Vallow and Joe Ryan, how devastating it was, and then it calmed down some, and then like 10 years later, it just went nuts. Next comment. Her aunt, which is Lori, thinks she's a victim too. She belongs where her aunt is, no doubt. Okay, guys, we're running out of time here. I would love to share all these comments. I really would, but 30 minutes is about the max I can go. So what I'm probably going to do is put the comments that we didn't read in this video here and there so that you can read them. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating on this channel and being supportive, liking, commenting. It means so much to me, and it means a lot to these girls because they're getting views. The cold cases like Dulce, Jasmine Robinson, and Summer Wells. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys soon.